This video is brought to you by HockeyMonkey.com, the world's largest online hockey retailer, offering all the latest and greatest hockey equipment at everyday low prices.
Hey guys, Josh from HockeyReviewsForYou.com, bringing you my review of the brand new Bauer Supreme TotalOne MX3 hockey skates. This is the brand new high-end model in Bauer's new Supreme lineup with a retail price of $850. It's very high-tech and honestly has a lot going for it, and that's what we're going to be talking about in today's video. I've been using this skate for, I want to say, over 50 hours or so now, so I've got a lot of time in these. And as far as modifications go, other than getting them baked and sharpened, I really haven't done much to them whatsoever. So with that being said, let's get right into my review. To start things off, let's talk about the boot. Now, the MX3 features what Bauer calls 3D aniformable curve composite technology, where essentially the majority of the boot, aside from the toe cap, lacing system, tongue, and of course the tendon guard, are made 100% from a one-piece composite shell. So essentially how this works is the shell starts out flat. So it's essentially a flat piece of composite material. They heat it up and they essentially wrap it around a mold to have this nice anatomical fit. It makes for a nice streamlined, clean looking design, but also makes for an incredible fit, great comfort, a very lightweight feel, plenty of stiffness and rigidity, especially when it comes to lateral movements, and it's also incredibly responsive. It's a type of material we're pretty much seeing on all of Bauer's current high-end skates, and it works extremely well on the MX3 as it does on all their other models. In comparison to the MX3, again, it doesn't have those little X ridges going across the back of the heel or in the ankle area, but if you ask me, it's just as stiff, just as stable, and arguably a little bit more responsive due to some of the extra features that are featured on the MX3 in comparison to Bauer's other lines. So overall, it's nice and light, it's very comfortable, it fits well, it's very stable, there's really nothing to complain about. It feels like a high-end skate, and in my opinion, is one of the most responsive boots currently out there on the market. Another new feature to the MX3 that to me is really one of my personal favorite elements of the skate is the implementation of the injected stability lacing system, similar to what we saw on the latest APX2 model from Bauer. Obviously from the Vapor line, this was not something that was on the NXG model, but when they bumped it up to the MX3, the latest thing, they implemented this injected stability system that honestly is a little bit different than what you're going to find on the APX2. The biggest change for me is the actual holes themselves. Now, as you guys can see, it's kind of a plastic piece. It's a very thick and durable plastic, for those that are wondering, that is triple stitched to the curved composite upper, and instead of having lace holes, you have this one single kind of curved bar where all the lace holes are going to be situated. Now, as opposed to just being more rectangular shaped as far as the holes themselves are concerned, this time around they have a T shape. So when you actually pull the laces tight, it kind of grabs it and holds it in place even without wax laces. I'm normally somebody that really needs wax laces when I'm wearing high-end skates, or any skates for that matter, just because I like my skates to be really, really tight, and I feel that I need wax laces in order to achieve that tight fit. But actually when you pull the laces tight, this T-shaped design they have in the actual injected lacing system here really holds the laces in place, not only when you're tying them up, but also throughout your entire playing session. So for the most part, it's something that I really like about this skate. It creates an incredible kind of one-to-one fit. It's very, very responsive. That's another thing that's great about this injected lacing system, is that it eliminates a lot of extra bulk that you would normally have. So the boot seems to sit a little bit closer to your foot, eliminating a lot of extra bulk, and again, just making for a more responsive feel overall. I also feel like you can get a little bit more forward flex because of this plastic construction, as opposed to something that's going to be a little bit more rigid in a more standard skate construction system. So overall, really, really good feature. Again, in comparison to the Apex 2, you're going to notice that the actual sides of this injected plastic are a little bit taller, so it tends to wrap over the top of your foot a little bit more in comparison to the Apex 2, where the sidewalls would more or less stay straight. Again, to me personally, I felt like this created for a better fit overall, a more one-to-one sensation when I had these skates on my feet. And again, I'm just really, really impressed with this upper. The combination of curved composite and this new stability injected lacing system, to me, just work extremely well and just makes for a great skating experience overall. Next, let's talk about the tongue featured on the MX3. Now, this is what Bauer calls a 3-flex customizable tongue, and in my opinion, it's one of the most unique aspects of the new MX3 skate. Now, as far as the tongue itself is concerned, it's made from a thinner layer of foam going around the edges. There's a thicker, more dense layer running through the middle to eliminate any kind of lace bite, and it's backed by a felt material. But for the most part, it's pretty straightforward, and as far as tongues go, to me, is on the thinner side of what you're going to find in a lot of high-end skates, a lot less traditional than what you're going to find on Bauer's Apex 2 skate. What makes this tongue unique, though, is the 3-flex kind of curved composite inserts that you can interchange with the tongue itself. Now, included with the skates are 3 curved composite inserts. One is a medium stiffness, one is a stiff stiffness, and one is categorized as extra stiff. Essentially, the difference is that they're a little bit thicker curved composite material. Curved composite, again, is, as I mentioned, the same material that the boot is made out of. And essentially what this curved composite insert that you put in the tongue is supposed to do is to create that kind of springboard effect. So when you're flexing forward, it's going to bounce back more and more and more depending on the stiffness that you put in the tongue. And what's great about this feature is, one, it allows you to customize the stiffness of your skate, and two, it actually makes a difference in terms of how the skates feel. Now, I kind of took my time and tried every single insert for an extended period of time just so I could see exactly how it modified how the skate performed and how the skate felt. And again, to my surprise, it actually makes a pretty big difference. Now, the medium stiffness one that they include is pretty flexible. There's not a lot of kind of resistance to it whatsoever. So if you're somebody that just wants maximum forward flex and not a ton of rigidity from your skate, then the medium flex one is definitely the way to go. If you want the stiffer, more stiffer feel, then you can definitely go for the stiff one. Again, it creates pretty significantly more resistance, if you ask me, versus the medium flex variation. And to me personally, somebody who doesn't necessarily like stiff skates all that much, I found myself personally most comfortable using the stiff insert in the tongue itself, just because it made for a good amount of forward flex, but I actually felt like I was getting some kind of responsiveness from the tongue, whereas the extra stiff one, to me, again, was definitely very usable, but a little bit too stiff for my liking, and it just felt a little bit unnecessary. I felt like I had to work a little bit too hard to get the amount of forward flex that I actually wanted from the skate. Now, as to work along with the tongue itself, you have what Bauer calls the free flex tendon guard, where essentially it's a tendon guard made pretty much entirely of plastic that has the ability to pretty much flex back about 90 degrees. So you can see that there is definitely resistance here. It's not super easy to move. And again, it was working with that tongue. So when you're flexing forward, you're getting that bounce back from the tongue. And then when you're extending your leg, you're getting that bounce back from the tendon guard. It's a very cool feature. It doesn't feel fragile or anything like that. That's kind of what I was worried about, is that it would break. But it feels very, very solid. But in all honesty, it's not something that I really noticed while I was using the skates. When I kind of went into full extension and pointed my toe at the edge of my stride, I really felt like I was only getting very, very little flex out of this tongue. It's not something where it's going to be dramatically bending when you're actually using these skates, unless I guess you have really, really flexible ankles, which apparently I do not. But again, it's not something that I really noticed in the skate. It's a cool feature. I definitely will give Bauer that. But it's not something that's going to make or break your experience with the MX3. I understand that they wanted to give you that maximum range of motion here, but again, it's not something that's going to feel dramatically different from a standard tendon guard. But definitely, the curved composite inserts in the tongue is one of my personal favorite features. It really gives you that ability to kind of gradually increase the stiffness, play around with what you actually like, and find an insert that actually performs best for you. What I also found great is when you're actually breaking in the skates, you can start off with that medium stiffness one, so it's a little bit more easier, a little bit easier to get that forward flex out of the skate, a little bit kind of easier to skate in them at first, because new skates can be very, very stiff. And then as you feel more and more comfortable, you can move up in stiffness, eventually working your way up to extra stiff if you'd like, or you can just stick with the stiff one, even stick with the medium flex one, depending on what your preferences are. So that little bit of customization that the tongue brings, to me, is something that I really, really like about the MX3 and its overall performance. As far as weight is concerned, the MX3 is very, very light, both in hand as well as on feet. Now, in a size 7.5 double E, the MX3 that I have right here weighed in at 1 pound 9.65 ounces, which is pretty light for a pair of skates. For comparison's sake, I weighed in my Apex 2s, which are the exact same size, and those guys weighed in at 1 pound 11.6 ounces. So these are essentially 2 ounces less than the APX2. Not a significant amount of weight, not even something that you're necessarily going to notice on feet, but it is a difference nonetheless. And as far as lightweight skates go, these are one of the lightest currently out there on the market. But again, if you're buying high-end skates, they're all going to be in a very similar weight range. So yes, they're not going to weigh you down, but what's great about these is that they're nice and light, and it doesn't feel like Bauer is taking anything away or sacrificed anything for the sake of making these as light as possible. Nice and light, but still responsive. That's really what's great about the MX3. As far as the liner is concerned, the MX3 features what Bauer calls a Hydromax 2 liner with built-in wear pads as well as your Total Edge comfort. Now, as far as the liner itself is concerned, it's more of a cloth-like material, which may come across as a little bit cheap at first, but in terms of actual practicality, to me it makes a lot more sense. You have your Anaform Fit foam on the inside, so there's lots of foam backing this kind of cloth-like material. And what's great about the cloth-like material is, one, it's very, very comfortable, which is important for any product that you wear on your feet, and especially something that's going to wrap your foot as closely as a hockey skate will. But it's also very, very light and does not absorb water, and also dries a lot more quickly, something that is really, really important with hockey skates. It's not fun to play in wet skates. If you're playing every day, something like this assures you that after you get off the ice, as long as you take them out of your bag and let them dry, they're going to be dry the next time you play. And again, they're not going to absorb water, so they're not going to take on as much weight as a standard liner would. As far as the built-in wear pads are concerned, you can see there's these little silver pads right here, basically where the tongue would meet the inside liner portion of the skate. As opposed to that tongue kind of just wearing away at that area of the liner, you have this kind of more rugged synthetic material that isn't going to wear away, and it's just going to create a more durable feel and a more durable build to the skate itself. So you're not going to have any kind of rough spots due to the tongue rubbing on the inside of the liner, which to me is a really smart kind of innovation, little implementation here by Bauer. As far as the Total Edge comfort is concerned, essentially the idea here is where you have a single piece of foam with like a synthetic leather material kind of wrapping over the edge, so there's no exposed seams or anything like that. You can see there is a bit of a kind of sloppy transition between the actual Hydromax liner and the Total Edge piece on both sides. It's not as cleanly finished as what you're going to find on the Total Edge comfort featured on the APX2. It's not something that I noticed when wearing the skates, but it definitely is visibly noticeable with the MX3. Again, it's just not as nicely finished off, in my opinion. As far as the insole is concerned, it features what Bauer calls the form fit insole, where essentially you have a one-piece foam insole with your kind of little comfort pads going around the toe area. You can cut them off if you don't like them there, or you can keep them there. I honestly didn't feel the need to modify it in any way. There's also a little bit of a grip coating here in the forefoot as well as around the heel. Again, just helping your foot to kind of stay locked in place inside the skate when you tie them tight. On the bottom of the insole, you're going to find that it does have these little kind of composite inserts. Again, it's supposed to make for a more responsive feel overall. It's not something you're going to notice while you're wearing the skates. A lot of people with these high-end skates tend to swap them out anyways, but to me, I felt no need to do that. The stock insole worked just fine. It was very, very comfortable, and for an $850 skate, you might expect something a little bit more fancy than what you're getting here, but again, I can't really complain about it. It definitely did get the job done. And as far as the entire inside of the skate is concerned, I just found them to be very, very comfortable, pretty much from right out of the box, and that is always a good thing. If you're familiar with Bauer, then you know that they have 3 skate lines, not just for the sake of having different skates and variety. They're there to have different fit profiles, which is very, very important with any high-end product. Now, with the Supreme line, it's designed to have more of an anatomical fit. Bauer describes it as a generous anatomical fit with a slightly wider forefoot and zero negative space in the heel and ankle area. And that is what I would say is a pretty accurate description of how this skate actually fits. The Vapor line is going to offer more of a tapered fit and is slightly more narrow, whereas the Nexus line is going to be more of a traditional kind of classic fit, where it's a little bit wider and more straight all the way through from toe to heel. Now, with the MX3 or the Supreme line in general, I really found that these fit my feet a little bit more comfortably than what I found from the Apex 2, which is of course from the Vapor line. Again, it's a little bit wider, mainly in the forefoot and midfoot from what I noticed. I would say a little bit more so in the heel as well, but for the most part, they're just extremely comfortable, and it's really up to you to determine which of the three lines from Bauer is going to be the best kind of fit for your own foot type. Even the toe box has that little bit of an anatomical shape to it, which is something that I really like. And again, it just fit me extremely well. As far as break-in is concerned, I got them baked, of course, did not change the laces and really didn't modify them in any way at all. And I just found them to be extremely comfortable from right out of the box. This is honestly the first pair of skates ever where I literally did not have any foot pain whatsoever throughout my entire experience, and they fit me pretty much like a glove from right out of the box. I was honestly very, very surprised. Normally with a new pair of skates, no matter how comfortable you think they are, they're always going to be some kind of a foot cramp, some kind of discomfort, however little or however severe it may be. But honestly, with the MX3, I had no issues whatsoever. It's just an extremely comfortable skate that I honestly feel like I could wear all day without any issues whatsoever. So that's something that, again, I really like about this skate. It's extremely comfortable. If you've worn the Supreme line from Bauer in the past, you're going to be really happy with the fit of the new Supreme MX3. Just to quickly touch on the outsole of the MX3, it's nothing particularly fancy. It's what Bauer describes as an ultra lightweight vented composite material. It's silver in color this time around. It's nice and thin, very, very rigid. You're not going to notice any additional flex to the base of the skate whatsoever. And you have 4 little vent holes, as you guys can see, to allow some air and some kind of moisture and heat to escape the boot. It's not necessarily something you're going to notice while you're wearing them, but it is nice that it is there on the MX3. But again, this is something you're going to find on all of Bauer's current high-end models. As far as the outsole is concerned, it's not something that is particularly relevant to the performance, at least in terms of what you're going to notice versus previous models or even other high-end skates out there on the market. One thing I will say is I'm not a huge fan of the silver color. I do understand that they wanted to go for a slightly different look in comparison to the NXG. They changed up the graphics a bit, still has that black and yellow theme. Just wish the outsole would have been black as opposed to silver, but I bet you some people probably love the silver look as well. So that's pretty much it as far as the outsole is concerned. It's nothing fancy, but it definitely does get the job done. Next, let's talk about the holder and runner featured on the Bauer MX3. Now, to nobody's surprise, it features the Tuck Lightspeed Edge holder with your trigger system in combination with the Tuck Lightspeed Fusion runner, which is a combination of stainless steel and aluminum, something I'll explain in just a second. Now, as far as the holder is concerned, Tuck holders are pretty common. I would say 90% of people are skating on these, so most people are going to be familiar with it. It's not a major change. I believe it's a 10mm increase in height versus some of the older Tuck runners, but again, it's not something that's super noticeable while you're wearing the skates, just because it is such a minimal change. As far as what is kind of the major feature here, you do have this little trigger system right here on the heel portion of the holder. Essentially what this trigger does is you pull the trigger and it acts as a quick release for the runner itself, allowing you to remove the runner and replace it pretty much on the fly. Now, a lot of people ask questions about the trigger. Isn't it too easy to pull? Can it just release the trigger while you're playing? And the answer to that question is no. It's actually a pretty firm pull, and you really, really have to want to pull this trigger hard to release the steel. So it's not something that's going to allow the runner to pop out on you while you're actually out there on the ice, so don't worry about that. But it definitely is a cool feature that some people are going to take advantage of, but I would say most are not. What's great about it is you can carry around a second set of runners that are pre-sharpened, so if you're in the middle of a game, you lose your edge, something really goes wrong, maybe even break your steel, you can kind of use this quick release trigger, pop in your new steel, and basically you're ready to go for the next shift. There's no kind of screws or extra maintenance required. You don't even have to take your skates off. You just pull the trigger, release the runner, pop a new one back in. So again, it's something that to me is more designed for professional level players that are going to have new steel on the fly. But I guess if you're going away to a tournament, you don't necessarily want to get your skates sharpened somewhere you've never had them sharpened before. It's nice to have a second set of runners that are pre-sharpened. So again, if something does go wrong, you can just pop in that new set and go about your day. As far as the steel itself is concerned, this is the Fusion runner from Tuck. I've heard some good things and some negative things about the runner. I've used it before on the APX2 and honestly don't have any complaints about it. It's a combination of stainless steel, which is going to make up the majority of the runner. But you can see here the edge that kind of sits closest to the holder itself features an aluminum piece, And essentially what that's there for is just to allow for a lighter feel to the runner itself. It eliminates some of that steel. It's essentially hollowed out, and they kind of fuse together that aluminum portion just to allow, again, for a more lightweight feel overall. So it is a little bit lighter than a standard steel holder, I believe somewhere around 25%. So it is something that you will actually notice if you were to kind of swap it out for a standard piece of steel. But in all honesty, does it make that big of a difference at the end of the day? I would argue no. Again, you do have the option to swap it out to a kind of solid steel tuck runner if that is your preference. But for the most part, I have no complaints. It hasn't broken on me. There's no real durability concerns whatsoever. If I did have one complaint regarding the runner, though, it would be that there is a fairly small amount of steel, even from brand new, whereas a standard tuck runner would have a little bit more kind of depth to it as far as the height of the steel is concerned. So again, it's not something to complain about if you ask me. It comes with the skates if you buy them, so that's kind of a no choice type of thing. But again, unless you're really picky about what steel you have on your skates, which I think most people would not be, this is definitely going to be a solid option and definitely will get the job done with the MX3. As far as durability is concerned, I really haven't had any issues with the MX3 thus far, and don't foresee having any issues in the next little while or so, other than just some minor scrapes and scratches on the holder, which are pretty unavoidable and nothing that's damaged the skate whatsoever. And then on the boot, again, some minor scrapes and scratches that are going to happen if you're playing hockey against other people. Again, nothing is physically wrong with the skate. All the damage, and the very little that there is purely cosmetic. And again, nothing that has hurt the structural integrity or just the longevity of this skate in general. Again, that Hydromax liner is a cloth-like material, which will kind of frighten a few people, I suppose, but it hasn't balled up. It's maintained its softness, and it still feels like it did from day one. So again, as far as durability is concerned, it's an $850 skate, and you should be able to get your $850 out of them, just as long as you don't grow out of them. But I guess if you're fully grown, this is a skate that you can buy and use for several years, because they really are well made and, again, feel very, very solid. Alright guys, that's it for my review of the Bauer Supreme TotalOne MX3 skates. If you enjoyed today's video and found it helpful, be sure to support it with a like. And if you have any questions or concerns at all regarding the fit and just general performance of the MX3, be sure to drop a question down below in the comment section, and I definitely will get an answer out to you. As far as the skate goes, I'm a really big fan. It replaces, for me, the Apex 2 as my go-to skate. The Apex 2 is a fantastic skate. I can't take anything away from the overall performance, but for me personally, my foot type seems to work a little bit better with the Supreme line than the Vapor line. If you fit better in the Vapors, honestly, the Apex 2 is an absolutely fantastic option, but if you're more of a Supreme type of foot, then this is an absolutely fantastic option as well. I find these to be a little bit more comfortable. I prefer the lacing system on this particular skate just because it wraps over a little bit more, locking your foot in place, and I really like the T-shaped lace holes. And this tongue is, to me, an absolutely fantastic feature. It allows you to customize the stiffness of the skate, an actual noticeable amount of customizability, which is something you don't see all that often in footwear products. And I really do feel like I'm getting more responsiveness out of the skate due to my ability to actually change how stiff it actually feels on my feet. So again, really happy with the overall performance. You really can't go wrong with the MX3. And again, it's an absolutely fantastic skate. My personal favorite skates that I've ever used. So again, that's pretty much it for the video. If you enjoyed it, leave a like. If you have any questions, leave your comments down below. If you guys do want to see some more videos on my channel, be sure to hit that subscribe button, because more reviews on all the latest and greatest hockey equipment is coming very, very soon. So again, subscribe for more of that. My social media information is down below in the description as well. So again, if you want to follow what I'm doing as far as content is concerned, that is the place to go. If you guys are interested in purchasing a pair of these for yourself, be sure to check out the review page on my website, hockeyreviewsforyou.com. You'll find a direct link to that down below in the description. And other than that, guys, hope you enjoyed today's video. And as always, thanks for watching.